Hey there. Have you ever heard a story so amazing you couldn't believe it actually happened? Well, the Bible is full of stories like that. Miracles that defy logic, break the rules of nature, and remind us of God's incredible power. Today, we're diving into the top 10 miracles in the Bible you won't believe happened. Let's get started. 1. Water into wine, John 2, 1-11. Let's kick things off with Jesus' very first miracle. Picture this. Jesus is at a wedding feast when suddenly the wine runs out. Yikes! Mary, his mother, steps in and nudges Jesus to do something. And what does he do? He tells the servants to fill some jars with water. Moments later, that water is miraculously transformed into wine, the best wine anyone at the wedding had ever tasted. Talk about saving the day. 2. The parting of the Red Sea, Exodus 14:21-22. Next up is one of the most iconic miracles in the Bible, the parting of the Red Sea. Imagine Moses standing at the edge of the sea with Pharaoh's army closing in behind him. It looked like an impossible situation. But then Moses stretches out his staff and God splits the sea right down the middle, making a dry path for the Israelites to cross safely. When the Egyptians tried to follow, the waters crashed back down, sealing their fate. What a rescue! 3. The feeding of the 5,000, Matthew 14:13-21. Here's a miracle that'll make you hungry. Jesus was surrounded by a crowd of 5,000 people who had nothing to eat. All they had were 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, not nearly enough to feed everyone. But when Jesus blessed the food and started passing it around, it never ran out. In fact, they had more than enough with leftovers to spare. Now that's what I call a divine feast. 4. The sun stands still, Joshua 10:12-13. This next one is truly mind-blowing. During a battle, Joshua asked God to make the sun stand still so the Israelites could keep fighting in daylight. And guess what? God did it. The sun didn't set for a whole day, giving them extra time to defeat their enemies. Can you imagine looking up at the sky and realizing the sun is just stuck there? A cosmic miracle like no other. 5. Elijah and the widow's oil, Kings 4, 1-7. Let's talk about one of the most heartwarming miracles when the prophet Elijah helped a poor widow who was about to lose everything. She had just a small jar of oil, but Elijah told her to gather as many empty jars as she could. Then, as she began pouring, the oil kept flowing, filling up jar after jar. Her little bit of oil didn't run out until every single jar was full. This miracle not only provided for her family, but showed God's care for even the smallest needs. 6. Jesus walks on water, Matthew 14:22-33. Here's a miracle that's truly awe-inspiring. Picture this. Jesus' disciples are in a boat, struggling against a stormy sea, when suddenly they see him walking on the water, calm as can be. Peter even steps out of the boat to join him, but starts to sink when fear takes over. Yet Jesus grabs him and pulls him up. It's a reminder that even when life feels like a storm, Jesus is right there, walking with us through it. 7. The resurrection of Lazarus, John 11, 1-44. Imagine losing a close friend and thinking you'll never see them again, only to have Jesus raise them from the dead. That's exactly what happened with Lazarus. He had been dead for 4 days, but when Jesus arrived, he called out to Lazarus, and Lazarus walked right out of the tomb. This miracle not only shows Jesus' power over death, but also his deep compassion for those he loves. 8. Daniel in the lion's den, Daniel 6:16-22. Thrown into a den of hungry lions, it seemed like Daniel's fate was sealed. But God had other plans. He sent an angel to shut the mouths of the lions, and Daniel spent the entire night unharmed. The next morning, when the king checked on him, Daniel was perfectly safe. It's a miracle of protection that shows how God watches over those who trust in him. 9. The healing of the blind man, John 9, 1-12. Jesus performed many healing miracles, but this one is especially powerful. A man who had been blind since birth encountered Jesus, who made mud from the dirt and placed it on his eyes. After washing it off, the man could see for the very first time. It wasn't just about restoring his sight. It was a powerful demonstration of how Jesus can open our eyes to see the truth. 10. The resurrection of Jesus, Matthew 28, 1-10. And finally, the greatest miracle of all is the resurrection of Jesus. After being crucified and buried in a sealed tomb, Jesus rose from the dead 3 days later. The stone was rolled away, and he appeared to his followers, alive and victorious over sin and death. This miracle changed everything. It's the cornerstone of our faith and the ultimate proof of God's love and power. And as amazing as these miracles from the Bible are, the incredible truth is, God is still working miracles today. Just as he healed the blind and raised the dead back then, he continues to bring healing, restoration, and breakthroughs in our lives today. You might have heard stories of people being healed from sickness, overcoming impossible odds, or finding peace in the middle of life's storms. That's God's power at work. Miracles aren't just ancient history, they're happening all around us. Sometimes it's in the big, undeniable moments, and other times it's in the quiet, everyday blessings. No matter how big or small, God is still in the business of doing the impossible. So if you're in need of a miracle today, whether it's healing, guidance, or hope, know that the same God who parted the sea and raised Lazarus is the God who hears your prayers. He's still moving, still speaking, and still showing his love in miraculous ways. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to hear more stories of faith, hope, and God's incredible power. And remember, the God of miracles is with you always.